walk into the actual real part of this station, which is registration process. I urge you guys to do two things. First is to refresh your browser. I believe the time is you may have been logged out.
Okay.
I'll tell her it's total time, it's not activity.
Yeah, as of right now, it's only minutes that you're allowed to be on any time. So that's why we added that as a number. But that's what's there. We can extend that to be some longer time than you just sign up by default. Well, it's actually the number of times since you last refreshed the page, believe it or not, which is somewhat, you know, I would have to refresh the page. So I'd like to go is registering a concept. So let me explain what that means first. There's common elements to every entity that are in the system. So everything that you put in here, whether it's a substance, whether it's whether it's an acid, or whether it's a chemical, whether it's protein, or anything of that nature, there are certain things like that are just common to them all. That includes names, and references, and relationships, things of that nature. You also just register a concept, which is some collection of those elements without any of the defining elements or substance. So these concepts are not quite, they're not as these ISO-compliant large substances, but they're still useful concepts like total immunity. In some cases, there's even things like you want a concept of vegetable oil, even though vegetable oil might not actually meet the criteria for being a substance by ISO convention. In that case, you could go through one of the concept registrations. I started this one only because it's the simplest one to do. I should say that whenever you're registering, you can just hover over the register button. You can choose between what kind of thing you're trying to register. It's a substance, a specified substance, concept. So first, let me just explain what these things mean. So many of us are familiar with the ISO 11238 definitions on these things. And many of us are. A few moments just to let everybody catch up.
Correctly using concepts.
Yeah.
It's not for any substance equal to concept of properties, which does not that's how the ISO.
That's right.
Requirement.
Yeah. So Siska's comment was that the item of concept, registering concept, is somewhat distinct from registered substance according to the ISO standards. Yeah. Actually, the way I say it is, it's a set of the ISO standard without any of the defining elements. So chemical structure or anything associated with that. It's just elements that are used for indexing and for naming and so on. There are many times, personally, I would love it if we never ever needed the concept of concept. Everything always had a very rigorous definition scientifically at the substance level. But the truth is, in the real world, there exist things that we have enough information for them to ever be substances, for ever get to this level of granularity required by the ISO standard. Thanks. I'll go over quickly what happens with this drop-down menu. So you either press the button, or few things up here. So there's three categories we have right now. There are substances, there are semi-substances. There's also a grayed out area called product, which is right now just sort of a placeholder to say, oh yeah, products could be here too. So if you look down below, I'll just explain at a high level what these are. Substances are the fundamental building blocks, anything above it. So the substances are those, as Larry said in his talk, they're these theoretically distinct entities in the world that are capable of separate existence and have defined immutable properties. So it includes things like water, includes like they include like some monoclonal antibodies and so on. Don't include things that are sort of conceptual and higher levels than that, and they include things at the moment that are like energy. So we don't believe it's going to be an identifier photon. So maybe it will be, I don't know. Yeah, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. Yeah, sometimes it's a thing, and sometimes it's not a thing.
And we get into quantum
So that's the general idea of what a substance is. Now, what a substance isn't is something tied, for instance, to manufacture. A substance isn't saying this thing produced by X company, nor saying this thing at this particular grade, like sterile water, water for injection, versus apple. All of those are still water. Those are still at the substance level water. At the spec substance, you can get into more detail. So a substance just qualifies as a substance. It's an additional identifier that takes some substance or set of substances and gives additional information. So a good example would be something like water is substance, but steam is a substance. So physical form is a good example of something that would be extending what a substance normally is. Normally, you could have something that are diverse mixtures put together. There's a mixture that if those things have reason to be together, that they come out naturally together. But if I just take a bottle of chemical X and a bottle of chemical Y, mix it together, I can't call that a substance unless the chemical change that happens to make a new substance. This is just, I'm just getting two things together. But there's meaning of that you still want to capture. You can that is considered as a group 1 specified substance. And concept, which is like a unspecified substance, going farther back, we're saying that it has defining elements. In fact, it has no defining elements other than names associated with
You've got examples of that. Example concepts.
Example concepts. So one good example, because right now I think there are 0 concepts that are imported into the default data set. But there's a set that are about to be entered. That includes things like total impurities. So there's a concept called total impurities, and that's used often in mentioning specifications. Somebody might have, for instance, there might be an EP spec or a spec from a lot of different, you could probably talk to the spec as I could, but that will something like this impurity much below this level, and if that's impurity of the substance, we'll put that as a relationship to say this substance and this substance must be below that. Other specifications that are for something like the total amount of impurities came out of this thing. But there is something called total impurities. There still could be a concept called total impurities. We can still reference it as a relationship and say,
Thank you.
For data, for instance, if you are migrating data from an old system, would you create legacy substances that are maybe not a match to an identity concept, or would you
I would say that when possible, the migrating data into this should the decision on what things you want to actually put into substances, what things that are not capable of being put in substances. We're going through this migration procedure right now with the FDA, and we're at the very best procedures to do for these things. So far, I'm going to get into that later on today on exactly what our process has been going forward, but it is a little bit tricky at times. I think the end result for us migrating into this, that they should be doing that just general mapping exercise, the existing records, and deciding to attack their information onto it as well, where possible, and where no, we'll probably import them in concept.
What's the other terminologies, like Lysomet, like Arts Norm, that has an ingredient concept, but that ingredient concept, is not, all the values are not really, don't really get to that definition of a substance. So, but the good news is that this data system can handle those other levels. Okay, so it may be a concept. It's too broad to actually nail down to a substance definition. Or it may type of specified substance where you need not only what it is, but also some idea of its purity. So that has a specified substance. So the standard handles all those levels. But as we work with the EBMPD data, we've seen is about half of the EBMPD codes are these substances. Okay, most of them are homeopathic, and each homeopathic strength, which is a different concept in the IMD, it has a separate code. Okay.
So going forward, what I've done is, for those who'd like to follow along, I've gone to register, drop-down, and I've clicked on concept. So just an example, what I'm going to say is that I'm registering, for instance, maybe vegetable oil. So the thing that you do, that you see when you click register a concept or any other terminal field, you'll see this names list. The very start with in the wizard, this actually a series of steps you're going to have to go through on top. And some control buttons on the side. And you can export the record that you've made so far, and you pop up to show exactly what it is that you're registering. Very interesting thing. You import an existing one that someone's given. So if I took this and I emailed this to one of you guys, and you click import, and it's in there, you'll get all the same data, which is not put in.
Example.
Sure. So, example. Let's say that I was going to do.
What?
In order to show an example, I have to actually go a little further. So let me show an example in a minute. Let me say that if I was going to go forward, the one we've made abundantly clear is you always need to have a name for something. Otherwise, pointless to put it in there. So the first thing you have to do is add at least one name. So below there are two buttons. There's add name list, and there's add name. A plus icon next to add name. A pop-up wherein the name information and some of the detailed auxiliary metadata things are. So, for example, if I name what I can start to put in is maybe vegetable oil. I don't know how to check that. Close enough. Anyway. So then, after you enter the name, what name type is appropriate for that name. So right now we have 5 name types. The initial name, that means that it has some status and some official naming organization. Systematic name, which means that some set of guidelines this name was sort of derived or derivable. Include things like taxonomic names, Latin binomials, IUP names for chemical structures, and so on. There's a name, which is saying this is somehow our word that we use now that just means synonym. It just means that this is something that has no, it's sort of the default status for a name. It might not, if it's none of the things, considered a common name. Terminology change if people don't like that one. We could just say synonym or just name. That's one reason. And very specific, code is not meant to be used for things like numbers, things like A code, and so on. It's not meant to be for company code. Yeah, not meant to be for systematic database kind of lookups. It's really meant to be for company code. It's for a company's code for this stuff. Yeah, exactly. Called many things by many things. So this would be a common name. If I were going to do a common name, I can also choose what language is found in.
Explain to the audience, what do you see on the name and official name? Is it used as a name or a common name?
Okay, that's a very good question. So the official names right now is a expandable list. Right now, the list we have is very, very short, but the general business rules are certainly the INN, UAN, ISO, and Frank can list several more. If he names anyone that has some official naming authority for this substance would be included in that. I'll actually get into that in just a second.
Then you expand when you go to official name.
Yep.
And you make a button there. You get a choice that is already known by some official name. INN,
Sure.
British Pharmacopoeia, EP, and so on. So that you get to choose,
yep.
Make a choice. So that you have to figure it out what is official name.
That's a very good Herman. Herman makes the point that as of right now, you have to, I'll show you in a second, you have to do a few more steps in order to get at what the official naming organizations are. And it would be somewhat nice if intuitively they just showed up as almost stat options right at the administrative drop down. A few clicks, and I think it would be useful. Right now, the way you'd actually do it is you'd say, this is an official name. At their official name dialogues that are associated with names show up. And you can, first of all, what is the official name in? What domain? So an official name only for drugs, might be official name only for cosmetics, might be official name only for food. You can select from a multiple group. Foods, for drugs. And for if you click on given tag on the little minus button, it'll show or
Don't have the buttons on the side.
Question, just to clarify, so in the standard ISO 11238, it applies to cosmetics.
And so I think probably Frank or Larry could speak to this. I believe that the ISO standard have broad applicability to substances. The actual adoption of it isn't specifically applied to any particular domain. Say it's only drugs, only for any
other domains. In different areas of, the drugs aren't constant throughout the world, so you have dietary supplements.
Yeah.
Here, those are drugs in Europe. Homeopathic, that would be another type of official name that we haven't put up there, but there's.
So to repeat her specific question, within ISO 118, and is it true that this is meant to be applicable to cosmetics?
Cosmetics in the U.S., many of our drugs now, if you have
Sunscreen, yes, I understand
No,
that.
it's the other way around.
But the organization that names them isn't INN or isn't USIC, it's the Personal Care Products Council. That's the old, CTFA. That's kind of the official name that SUSAN recognizes for different ingredients and for different drugs.
Because how I interpreted it was that ISO IDMP was identification of medicinal products. So if it classified it as a medicinal product,
in some
the standard would apply.
considered a drug. In
Exactly.
the US now, they claim any sunscreen protection.
They claim that they actually protect you from a disease or a condition or...
Right.
That's the definition that they have.
Sunscreens are regulated now, you know, they're much more strictly regulated now in the US than they were previously. A lot of the interpretation of that has been that cosmetic, it can be lipstick, is supposedly protecting you from UVation.
Exactly.
Could be considered a drug. And right, if they make a sunscreen claim, they have to, you know, sort of.
Yeah, I think more to that point also, in terms of informational things like this about something as cosmetic, many at the substance level, there might be a substance that is used as an inactive ingredient or an excipient inside of a drug, which is also used in a cosmetic and has a different name in the cosmetic field. One we identify this name is used in the cosmetic field. Not some person who needs to, when they're registering for a cosmetic, actually to obtain a unique identifier for that is based on the jurisdiction, but to be able to have that information capturable that in the cosmetic name, this substance has this.
And it even gets more tricky than that one.
But the grade of the substance is going to be different because they don't tend to use
the grade.
grade
Oh, sure. So,
substances cosmetic because
absolutely.
they're not being...
And that's captured at a higher level. That's captured at
Yeah.
sort of 3D, where you indicate the grade. It wouldn't have to be from a field grade.
Yeah.
For that, it could be, you know, and cosmetics are, you know, they should be probably protected, you know.
They're not.
You know.
Okay, thank you.
Is it with a code system? No.
No, it has to be a reference source, though. It could be, you know, it could be yourself. I mean, you know, we make up a lot of names. Not that.
I think you should have a reference, and that's the main thing. Now, for codes, codes have to be associated with code systems. So codes are different than names, and even though the name type called code is different than a code, which is its own.
Yeah, like company codes, we took the name, but any other codes.
No, I've got the
Sort of
definition of
use codes pretty vastly.
cosmetic.
Look, we consider that a code because we link out to that. Those are link outs are codes.
So to go forward, so one thing that you can do is if something is an official name, besides being able to specify what domain it's official in, you can add several naming organizations where it will be that you can have a naming organization that's designated this to be official. So this is somewhat awkwardly drawn form, but down below you'll be able to see this is a very short list, only 4 things. This is the way in the future, but with testing, we're saying that for instance, you could say this is an INN name, a unit name, There'll be several different organizations. Let me just walk you through exactly what happened there. Just click down there, you're adding naming organization. But after the name organization, you're saying which name organization is official. So you select the drop down, which official name organization it is. There's a little just error here. This button is just to indicate whether or not this is current or deprecated. If you can say it's deprecated, and then you can explain when it was that it was deprecated. We have to use this.
Yeah, it would go to the name, not to the organization.
Yeah, we're not deprecating the INN. It'll be rude of us.
The main example, that's the one that everyone knows, but it's just,
So certainly, we also have the concept of what jurisdiction it is. In here, with very simple drop-down list that we need to expand and decide where people want the granularity to be. But you can just select from a certain list of countries that are where this name is official. For instance, maybe this is official this vegetable oil, of course, is not official in any of these places, but you say that it's in Netherlands or the United States. So we just got a question.
Well, eventually, you would cards containers and we have stuff drive
Yeah.
but you would eventually be able to, when we get advanced search things, you'd be able to get all the official names and jurisdiction. But again, we couldn't guarantee that right now.
No, so not
Anything.
I should just mention real quick for Larry's thing, in terms of this level of detailed data, far from our initial migration test from the SRS data, from the EA, this level of granularity hasn't been adequately parsed down. They were capturing this in more of these comments kinds of fields, and we're now still trying to work out the procedure to make sure it gets populated.
We have brackets that indicate, you know.
Sure. So
We haven't captured ban at all. We captured most of Jan, most of INN.
there are a few things just about domains and so on that we haven't captured jurisdiction. Questions that just asked on the phone that I think I'll pose out. I think it's sort of a process question was whether a specific organization like PCP can be able to go in and add their own name directly to centralized system. From my view, I think that's exactly what we're going for in the future. So we have considered to be a static centralized system. The idea would be that certain authorities would be granted their status as authorities to be able to add things to the default distributable database. But right now, we don't have any direct plan to. We don't have direct to go through that, but that's definitely something we were planning on doing. And you can, those in the room who are involved can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's, you know.
Yeah, you know, there are substances, how do you check that they are all
Sure.
that it's not double?
There's a few ways that this happens right now. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that's sort of, more confusing, one or the other, is that as you're first typing a name, if you just have the drop-down showdown here just to make sure that you're not already in something that's in, you see, as you're starting to type aspirin, if you pop up, well, that's aspirin, then you'll know not to put that in. But it turns out that what you're doing is let's say it's something you still manage to push your way through. Just go into some slightly new material for just a second, and then I'll get back to your question. I've entered in some name information. I'm going to keep this simple and say that I've entered the common name and not go into the official stuff. If I try this name, I won't be able to because I have at least one reference. Every data has to have some sort of reference. Two is you can click the plus button to add a reference. It'll here put in some detailed information about where that reference is. This is a very short list of possible values that we're expanding upon, and weirdly media is the top one. So, but much data from Wikipedia. But if you search down below, you'll be able to find just some general tag of where this information came from. For a journal article, this was from USP Dictionary or something of the nature. In this case, I'll say it's other. This is just me making things up. We're reference type and also a citation or a reference name. This should be a formal citation of any kind. It needs to be something that you're using this with a reference. So for instance, I'll just say that. We'll see this, and hopefully they'll say that that's not a good reference, or it's something like this. You also put in a URL for where you got this reference from. Theoretically, every reviewer upon approval process, they really should be looking to make sure that the source is represented what you put in. So this is a useful way to check with that. You can also say when it was that you accessed this document, the original source document, upload directly and be able to keep that reference. So, stop me if I'm going too fast. Is there any questions so far?
Yeah, I've got a question. Is there a spell check for existing names? The fact you typed in aspirin with D. Is there a way of...
Aspirin is a real thing also.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
So that's one of those common things that people
But is there,
Yeah, right now in the type
in a situation where
yeah.
this didn't exist?
Sure. Right now, there is a basic, what do you call it, distance checker.
Yeah.
It's just saying that the added distance is within a certain amount, it will show up as that. But the duplication process,
Yeah.
we don't as of yet have anything beyond just a very simple standardization of names. So just say this name's on all caps, so this name has these characters, and you remove them. But it certainly would be have a detailed spell checker.
We had one, SIS, and maybe public health uses it too, but there are some spell checkers out there. We did have them at one time on our public site. What happens sometimes is that people would pick the wrong thing, because Tyler said there's a lot of things close to each other, and so we actually removed it, because there were people actually picking the wrong name, because it would come up close, and they think, well, that's the right thing, and they'll pick it, and so that's why we removed it. So again, we had one back, but you just have to use it cautiously, because there are a lot of drug names that are, even though INN and USAN try to do a good job sometimes.
So I would say we're exploring that more, but so far most of the times when we've implemented one of these, it works well for a certain class, it works terrible for another one. So as of the moment, we're in kind of the discretion of the editors and rely on their expertise to make sure that things aren't just complete nonsense.
But I think it is not too difficult that when you add a name, that the exact combination of names and exchange by the machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when that is the case, it's not sort of
absolutely. So let me actually get to that point. That question that was raised previously as well. Just a kind of housekeeping thing. I'll actually take a break pretty soon, so I'm going to finish up just putting a name here, and then we'll take a break for a little bit. But I'll try to answer that question. So go through this just very quickly. For reference, you can add some sort of tags to say that what this reference was relevant to. Maybe this is relevant to security or something like that. You can upload that document, as I said, so that the future can look into it. I'll go into this in more detail later on. Similarly, there's an access control setting where you can say for each piece of data and each reference to say who it is that's allowed to see this. Right now, there's only two settings. It's just protected and not protected. Protected just means that somebody who has more privileges in the protected group can see it. The other one would not be able to. This flag is used right now mostly for releasability, not strictly for API functionality, but in the future. Okay, a reference. I get several references, maybe 12 references for something, but in this case that would be overkill. So I'm just going to start with one reference for this thing. Now then, what you see is if you look at the screen, you see that analyze the names. There are two buttons that show up on the side. There's a red icon, there's a green icon. Let me explain what those are. It explains the green icon resolves to a structure. Just a second. One means the name already exists. If you'd like to see what the name is, you can click record and it will search and show you the full results of what that name was and what it was associated with. You can force it to go through, but it's warning you that you probably shouldn't. In the field, probably make it a higher level role to even be able to add something that's a duplicate name, but at least try to warn you. If you look at the name resolves to a structure, just to explain that for a second, very often when we're adding new chemical names, where we're chemicals, it turns out that we don't want to put in all the structural information, redraw structures, and so on. If you put a name in, it will help you decide what is the actual chemical associated with it. So down below, if you see the resolve the structures button, it'll pop up and tell me from various sources what the name aspirin has actually meant. So it's saying that to NCI, aspirin means this. Makes sense. To PubChem, aspirin means this. Turns out that's the same. This one's different.
They'd be different colors, Tyler, right?
Yeah, if they were different, they'd be different colors. So, there's sometimes when there's disagreement in public databases on what these names actually mean, what they're resolved to. This is just here to help you find out what the public knowledge is associated with these things. Not, you know, these sources are just meant to be to help you get to where you are. I wouldn't take them to be complete, you know, to try any given source that would pop up here, but they're very useful. Just a quick point to make, that if I've added several names, it will resolve all of them at once and show me the comparative. So, for instance, I'll just to kind of do that very quickly. Aspirin, aspirin are both the same. So I said that I'm adding a substance that has both aspirin and aspirin as names. That's somewhat reasonable, but if I pop up, you'll see that those being different structures. So look down here below, I'm going to filter down, you'll see this warning. It says there are unique structures associated with these names. So that means you didn't mean to put them together. If I do NCI, for instance, I'll see this is what NCI has set these names mean. Aspirin means this, aspirin means this. Even if you were going forward with chemical registration, which we're not, we could choose chemical that's appropriate, approximate thing we're looking for. The color codes down here are representing the uniqueness of structure or an approximate uniqueness of the structure. So that anything that's in red is approximately equivalent, anything that's in green is approximately equivalent, and on as you get more and more. The land view to see those things that are that the public is around these names.
Quick nuance question.
Absolutely.
What degree of granularity are you doing structure determination? For instance, same salt, same stereos, same hydrate, same toner, same whatever.
Question. Right now we're using this a code base that we have called Lychee. The default is actually to do it at a water strip. Polymer sensitive, or the tolerance sensitive level. We can get into same isotope, same, but it can be different tautomer. Tautomer all get the same hash. Yeah, those same salts.
Have different molecular forms, but the same.
You know, you have to be definite. We like to be definite. I mean, there are some cases where, you know, we know the absolute hydration state or range. Those are non-stoichiometric compounds. We don't like them, you know, but we want to be definite. Is you know, each salt form we get a separate ID. Each hydration.
I think the question is slightly different. I think Evan's question is actually just a more of a plumbing issue and technical issue.
No, he's actually you're fine.
Okay.
Because I expanded it in the end, which is the point that he's addressed, that geometry may or may not be known. Aluminum, salt, you have hydrate or hydroxide, which may be determined. Maybe one aspirin, maybe two aspirin.
Sure.
Maybe just three.
People put down very common.
And what we try to do, and again, we mostly look at CAS, and we try to take definite stoichiometry. We're looking to put in stuff within definite stoichiometry, but it really is, and again, a lot of times, especially like with peptide salts and things like that, you very seldom get definite stoichiometry, and we look at it.
Monohydrate, the dihydrate.
Yeah, and they would all have separate unique codes, and because they have different pharmacological performance, and if you switch them, we really want to know that because you can go from bioavailability to non-bioavailability pretty quick and some of that stuff. And so, you know, that's the point. Yeah.
My answers are particular to this resolving step. And resolving step is different than the business process step, and is also different from the duplicate check that happens later on. At this resolving step, the answer is I believe that it is stereosensitive, but it is tautomer insensitive, and that it includes the salts and the water and the hydrates. So that's how that would be. Just one quick thing at the end of this. Now that I'm in some data, if I click the export button, this is a meaningful thing to export to somebody for them to pull in and continue the record. Or I could save this file and come back to it later in order to continue the registration, or email somebody or something like that if they want to. With that, I'll just take maybe 2 questions, and then if we can just take a break and get some coffee. You want to just select one of those names as preferred. And then you'll go to the next step.